Welcome to In the Kitchen with Dinah. Today, we'll make pumpkin scones.
Someone's in the kitchen with Dinah. Someone's in the kitchen, I know. Someone's in the kitchen with Dinah. Gonna taste good, I know.
So fall has definitely come today. It's nice and cool, and I thought we'd whip out some pumpkin scones. They're definitely something I don't always. We usually have pancakes. But on occasion, I'll make them in the fall on Saturday mornings. So let's get started with this one. We're going to start out with 2 cups of flour. All right, so we're going to add dry ingredients to this, and then I'm going to cut in some butter. So we have 2 teaspoons of baking powder. I've tweaked this recipe from the original, what I found, over 10 years ago. I didn't like how it turned out the first time, so I fixed it. All right, so we got 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a teaspoon of salts, no, a half a teaspoon of salt, we have a teaspoon of cinnamon, and a half teaspoon of nutmeg and ginger. There's some ginger, some glorious nutmeg, and then we're also going to add a teeny tiny bit of soda. I found that the soda helped with the leavening and the overall texture of it, so I added just a tiny bit, but it sure makes a big difference. All right, so now I've got all our dry ingredients in here. I'm going to give them a swizzle. Then we're going to take a half a cup of butter, and we're going to 1 stick. The butter hound is over here. The colder the butter, the better. You sure don't want it sitting out on the counter when you're doing this. You want it hard, because that butter is going to wrap around the flour and create pillows. And then when it all cooks, it rises, and you get all these wonderful pockets in your scones. It makes for great texture. Some people grate it in, they freeze the butter and grate it, but I never thought that was necessary. Okay, so we got a pastry blender. We're just going to cut it in till it's coarse crumbs. And then we'll add all our wet ingredients. Definitely get your morning workout in doing this. I find that I usually do a rocking motion on the round of the bowl with the round of the pastry cutter. And then I just turn my bowl. Oh, these spices in here smell so great. All right, a little bit more. All right, that looks really great. This is definitely one recipe that you're going to want to use your hands a lot, so make sure they're super clean. Okay, so we've got the butter worked in. It's got some clumps in there. Now we're going to add our wet ingredients. So we've got 1/3 cup of brown sugar. Actually, I'm going to work that in here. That should have went in with the dry. That brown sugar is going to give it more flavor than the white sugar would have, especially with the pumpkin and all the fall spices. All right, that's good. All right, so I've got 1 egg, which I added from the original recipe. I added egg, and I added the soda. I love the texture that the egg brings to the scone. So I'm going to make a well in the middle, dump the egg in. I whisk it just a tiny bit. We've got a half a cup of pumpkin, and I just use canned pumpkin. And a half a cup of heavy cream. Don't chintz on the heavy cream because that is part of the richness and the fat content to your scone. And I like using a fork when I do this. And I'm just going to bring it in from the edges and be real gentle. Then as soon as it's mixed up, we're going to dump it out and I'll knead it a little bit and then we'll get it all made into a scone. Boy, the pumpkin and the cinnamon smells so delicious. It's definitely a cool day today, so these are going to be delicious. I'm going to have to make me another cup of coffee. All right, so they're kind of together. I'm going to take my hand and I bring it up from the bottom and kind of push it into the middle, and I kind of knead it in the bowl so there's not so many crumbs. All right, so before we put it out, I'm going to clean up my area here real quick because I need some space. So on your clean counter, I'm just going to sprinkle a little flour out. You don't want too much because you're going to dry your scone out. And then I just pop my dough out real gentle. Kind of clean your bowl out. I'm going to knead it just a couple times to make sure all those ingredients are good in there. You're just going to pat it into a circle. And if it's a little sticky, you can put a little more on there. These scones really grow in the oven. I always forget. Try to get it as round as you can. It's probably, what, an inch thick? Would you say? I think so. Okay, so you can see all the delicious chunks of butter in here, all your spices. This is one time if you don't have a bench scrape, just use a knife to cut these, but I really like using it. So we're going to cut this into 8 pieces, and you just go quarters, then eighths. I like using a bench scrape because I can scoop the scones up and stick them on your cookie sheet. So I've got a big cookie sheet here. It's lined with parchment. So I'm just going to set them down on there. Whoops. Let's go this way. And that way. Okay, perfect. Now we're going to pop them in the oven at 400. My oven is a convection, so the air is spinning all the time, so mine actually says 375, and it's going to go about 20 to 25 minutes. Okay, so before, I almost forgot here, before you put them in the oven, I always like to brush them with a little half and half. So let me wash quick and I'll get that done. I'll show you how to do it. Okay, so I'll just take some half and half. You could use milk if you want. Put a little in a bowl. And grab a pastry brush, and then we're just going to brush the tops. This helps them brown really lovely, and then we're going to also make a drizzle for the top here in a second too. If you don't want to do frosting, you could use the gosh, I forget what it was called, the fancy sugar on top. I'll have to remember what it's called.
Oh, that granulated?
Yeah, the big fat granulated. Almost looks like fat granulated sugar. I don't like the crunch. I like the smooth texture of the frosting. All right, let's pop these in the oven. They'll get delicious. Go get some coffee on. See all these delicious butter and all the things that are going to puff up and be amazing. All right. 20 minutes, here we go. So I'm going to show you how I clean up a flour mess. So you can use your bench scraper and or a spatula would work. And I just scrape it up off my counter. You don't want to hit this with a wet washcloth because it turns to paste, like paper mache paste, like glue. So I just scrape it up, have your bowl handy, and scoot it right into your bowl. And then it's easy cleanup. And this is good for when you're doing pies or you just have a flour disaster. Okay, so now that the scones are baking, we are gonna make the icing for the top. I love putting a drizzle on the top of the scones. So I buy my bulk powdered sugar at Costco. So that's why I have it in this container. I go through it way too fast. So we're gonna start with a cup of powdered sugar. And we're gonna put some cinnamon in. I'm just gonna guess, I'm gonna put probably a half a teaspoon. This makes it so delicious. And a tiny bit of ginger. That's about right. And, oh, would you grab me my vanilla?
Vanilla, okay.
Vanilla, thank you. All right, so grab a whisk all your dry ingredients together. Put a little dab of vanilla. You don't have to measure. And this is the tricky part because I don't measure this either. So just take some milk and add probably a tablespoon at a time. It's probably a teaspoon until it's your desired thickness. And I sit in the middle, and as it gets wet, it pulls in all the powdered sugar. I can see I need some more milk in here. Be careful because you can do too much milk and can always add, but you can't put it back. Still want a tiny bit more.
You think Mama got something in me?
All right. So I usually hold the bowl and just really whisk it together. You kind of want it to do this. You want it to hang in the whisk and yet fall out because we're gonna drizzle it like this over the scones. So when I've reached that, I know it's good. All right, now that we've got the drizzle done, we're gonna wait on the scones to bake, and I'll show you how to drizzle the icing on the scones when they come out. All right, let's give these a peek. Ooh, look at how perfect they are. All right, so these are nice and golden brown. They're all puffed. I forgot to tell you before, I usually always put a tiny bit of salt in my frosting because it balances out the sweet and brings out the flavor of everything that you put in there. But you want to add just a tiny bit, like that much. And I do it in all my frostings, and it really makes a big difference. So just get that mixed up good. Okay, so then I just go like this. This is so satisfying to watch it drizzle over the hot scone. If you want to, if you don't eat these all in the first setting, go ahead and wait for them to cool completely before you put them just in an airtight container. They also freeze really well. Whoops, that one has a big puddle. So then if you have a little left, you can go back, like I'll put a little more on this one. So grab a scone, put it on a plate. Hopefully, I should have made myself another coffee. They don't get any better than this. So good. They are a little cakier of a scone instead of more biscuity, but I really like it that way. I hope you try these. If you do, comment below. And don't forget to comment, subscribe, and turn on your notifications. Please let me know if you have any questions. Have a great day.
Denny, go lay down.
Go lay down. So nerves.
He is nervous today.
Denver, go to your spot. Denver, go to your spot.
Clang with the footy.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Can you find me a half a cupper?
Find it. Is that the A-team? Wow.
It's such good. I hear the horns. It's so good.
Yeah, that was good. Go lay down.
Go lay down.
Lay down.
Gonna taste good, I know.